welcome to Dev Talks. Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar, who's here with me, sir, who's taken me through the entire tactics or the battle fighting plan that the PLA has. What are the dependencies on what kind of warfare? And we've done a very nice, extensive video on that. If any of you who are watching this video have not seen that one, please do watch that for a basic understanding on the tactics or the battle plans of the PLA, how they will fight, what do they do when they fight, and what are their main strategies. Sir, thank you so much firstly for taking us through that. A lot of appreciation has come for that particular video. But as I mentioned in that one itself, I had quite a bit of doubts with that because, of course, questions do come up. So thank you for joining me again to clear me through some of those hurdles.
Yeah, thanks a lot for inviting me for the show once again. It is only natural that you have doubts because PLA system is quite opaque and not everyone knows it. And unless you read from diverse sources, you don't get a hang of what they are. And, and they're aping a system which they're not themselves very clear about. But they have a system. So there will be doubts. And we'll see how best to see what they're up to.
So firstly, you spoke about localized war, and that is something that the PLA has, and I've read here and there. You've spoken about it. You took us through the entire, concept of it. That tells us that it's a theater-wise sort of an operation. Either putting in context of India, it'll be either in the Arunachal Pradesh or Ladakh and stuff like that. And you also mentioned that the counterbalance to something like that could also for India to be getting into another small theater to kind of counterbalance that entire thing. My question to you is viability of a localized warfare for Chinese. Looking at the factor that the campaign seasons are different in both the areas, as you've taken us through in one of the previous videos as well. There's a different campaign season for Ladakh and there's a different campaign season for Arunachal. So how do you think, this whole thing will play out in terms of a potential battle between India and China?
See, first and foremost, I don't see a great battle happening. I mean, I don't visualize that now or in the future also. I'll justify it and then we'll go to the second part of the question. First, what is local war? Local war doesn't mean, first, local war means it's not a total war. No great destruction, no nothing. So, local war has two components. One is scope. When you say scope, what is the physical scope of this war? Right? Will it be only in Eastern Ladakh or Eastern Ladakh and Central Sector and Eastern Sector, or all three? So, that scope will be limited first. Then the thresholds of violence will be limited so that escalation doesn't take place. So there are two aspects to this, right? The scope of the local war and the dimensionality of the local war. Okay, so their concept is, how do I win this local war and make the enemy surrender or make him do what I want him to do. And remember, they also want to fight and win this war without fighting. Winning the war without fighting is their, mantra. Okay, so if that be so, in their concept and my understanding, a local war with India is something like what they did in Eastern Ladakh. Grab a portion, assert their right, show India down, etc., etc. Because they also know that if they get entangled with India in a major war, they sunk. Finished. If they get into the total war concept, then you forget about all the other domains. The only domain is land, air, and sea, and against them it will only be land. If they get entangled with India along the 3,000-kilometer border on land, they can forget going to Indian Ocean, they can forget South China Sea, they'll only keep fighting India. And they'll destroy themselves. Because they have to come 6,000 kilometers and fight. I mean, a missile is fine, but ultimately it will come down to Mother Earth. So that's going to be a difficult affair. And I don't think that is in their concept also. Because if that happens, there are going to be political repercussions. So let's not talk of that. That is, so it's a local war. Okay. Now, local war, I did say that you create a condition for a local war there. They do a local war business. We would also do a pro quid quo, as they call it. Now, that pro quid quo can be in the same area, like we did in Kailash Range. They occupied Pangong, so we occupied Kailash Range. Almost the same time frame. So you could do a swap. You could get into a position of advantage and de-escalate the situation. When they suddenly realize, oh, bloody hell, we are stuck, they started de-escalating. Okay. Now, you might say, look, it's not necessary, since the seasons are different in Ladakh and seasons are in Arunachal, will it work? It will work. The local wars are not bound by time. That local war is still continuing in the Depsang and Demchok and Hot Springs. It's not sorted out, no? Right? So, in the meanwhile, if they go to the extent that you go occupy something else, you say, yeah, I'm occupied this, chalo, tum abhi Depsang rakhna chahta, roko, main ye rakhunga. Even now, you can do it wherever you want. So, if they start another equation or another local war in future anywhere else, you can do it anywhere else, any other time. So, unless, of course, you want to do it immediately, then you do it like we did in Kailash Range. And Kailash Range is not the only place you can do it. You can do it in Depsang itself. Even within Depsang, in that area, you can do it incidentally. If you want to do it. So, the point is that local war is, it's not fixed in time, space, or its violence and the level of the war. It's all nebulous. It's how you want to play it. Right? So that's how it is. So there's no problem executing it where you want.
That's very interesting. So you actually break it down to a very tactical level.
Yeah. Ultimately, it has to come down to that. I mean, you can talk of space, you can talk of cyber, and all that, but ultimately, you have to come down to Mother Earth.
The long-term solutions are different, but tactically you can do quite a bit.
You can.
Absolutely. So, but having said that, you also mentioned some time back that there is a possibility, or you could look at damaging them or creating some trouble for them by getting into Gilgit-Baltistan, which has a huge, Chinese supply line going into CPEC and the entire this thing, and they've invested quite a lot of money, so they would also have their interest in that region. Does that also say that any settlement between India and China will also include that entire area?
See, Gilgit-Baltistan, in my understanding, many people might agree, not agree, is the center of gravity between Pakistan, China, and India and Afghanistan.
Yeah.
You get into Gilgit-Baltistan, you do any trouble in Gilgit-Baltistan, it affects Pakistan, it affects Afghanistan, it affects China. Right? And my view is the moment we declared Article 370, we were looking at Gilgit-Baltistan, but it threatened China, and that's how they came at us in eastern Ladakh. So, if you do anything there, it has got repercussions. But the Chinese will settle with you. They will never invoke Gilgit-Baltistan. That's the Chinese way. Okay? They will never invoke Gilgit-Baltistan. They will tie you down there. They will never officially say, we are in league with Pakistan. They might foment trouble for you on that border through Pakistan. That's a different story. Okay? So, that's how I leave it there. I mean, the possibilities are very open. Will not, and they're contentious also. And they're contentious. This is my view. Others might have a different view altogether.
Absolutely. I mean, this is just a discussion of thought processes.
Yeah. And people will say, look, this type it's a harebrained idea, but so be it.
Sir, I mean,
all harebrained. All harebrained tactics work in war.
Yeah, I was just about to say that because weird things kind of come out. Great results. There are times that So, we when we study the PLA's war tactics, we realize that it's a hardcore system based. They want to be sitting in front of their computers and their systems and their command centers and fighting this particular war. They probably and I, as a layman, look at it that the hands dirty issue yaad nahi. System wisdom, let's fire some missiles, let's cut there this thing, cut there that thing, and stuff like that. Now, my question to you is: Indian Army is a highly ground-based army. It's a very ground-based armed force. Systems, yes, there's a lot of dependency on the systems as well. But uh, you know, can this system-based warfare be countered by a highly maneuverable force with a high level of redundancy built into its operations?
See, whether even in a look, they are trying to fight a system versus system battle through informatization. Okay. Now let's see what the systems are all about. I mean, I spoke about their systems consists of the information support system,
Yeah.
consists of early warning and reconnaissance. It consists of a real-time command and control system. They're talking of integrated defense and defense force system. That is the firepower and infantry, mech and all that. And then an integrated logistics system. Right. Now to upset this system, you need to use maneuver. Okay. You need, right. If you have to use maneuver, you have to virtually, willy-nilly neutralize some of their systems or part of their systems and blind them beforehand. That means you also have to get into system warfare.
Of course.
Right? One. Number two, these systems are not something unique. This information system, early warning, reconnaissance, these are all part of normal warfare which you learned. So even we know how to fight this. They've put it in a particular manner, but we do it daily. So any maneuver warfare also depends on seeking information, having command and control. The crux of maneuver warfare is seeking information, positive control over the battlefield, delegation, things like that, and maneuver. Okay, and all that. So it is not different. But how do you maneuver to defeat that system? You maneuver that, you maneuver two ways. One is you maneuver by fire and you maneuver by movement. In mountains where it's almost a positional this thing, so you have to create maneuver by firepower. So if you can generate maneuver by firepower, because movement is difficult in high altitudes, but firepower. So you have to have a different way of thinking. In which case, can you interfere with your maneuver capability into his operational systems? Can you blind his early warning? Can you finger his real-time systems? It's not that maneuver means that you keep sitting on front line and or rather in high altitude means that you don't maneuver and you keep sitting across each other. You can maneuver through special forces. You can maneuver by infiltration. Maneuver is going behind him, putting yourself at an advantage. The advantage, he is heavily dependent on his information systems. Can you blind them? Can you interfere with them? Maneuver is also maneuvering his mind. Can you feed him information? And maneuver is mind. So when you think of maneuver, you have to think differently when you're handling this fellow. And then you use whatever you want. Can you interfere with his logistics system? So you attack, if he is trying to attack something, you attack something else, some other system of this.
Long trail from central China to this place. Logistics is a big
Many things can be this thing, and time is not of an essence.
That's true.
Okay, threat. Maneuver is all about posing threat, collapsing the enemy without fighting, winning the war without fighting, like Chinese do. Can we think that way? When we think that way, things will happen.
True,
Unfortunately, we are not. I don't see the Indian Army or the Indian Armed Forces thinking that way. I mean, you have a tremendous advantage of air power. you have to use it.
That's true, sir. That's true.
Yeah.
I'm sure this pressure would have brought some different thought process.
Yeah, and you can maneuver quite a bit in Malacca Straits.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole different front out there.
No, it's not a different front. This is the same front, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, of course.
So you do something there. That chap has declared one, China Sea as his. You declare Andaman Sea as yours, and say anyone coming here, you really tell what you are and where are you going, and start that story. What he's doing there, you do it here.
Domination of that area, and
yeah, to do that.
You don't have to do much. Put a guy there with a radio and start.
Yeah. And you then are cutting some umbilicals for him. So it is not so simple.
If anything else, it will create chaos.
Yeah, it will create
that's more
chaos.
than enough.
Yeah, that's.
So, in terms of an informatized system, one of the biggest things that I kind of derive is that are they having over dependency on these system based or informatization of their warfare capabilities to cover up a certain deficiency in terms of their conventional capability?
I won't put it that way. They have some conventional capability. It will be foolish on our part to ignore that.
Absolutely, yes.
They don't have experience, but the fact that they're capable is there, right? One. Number two, the second thing we have to understand is that they're very well equipped. Probably by now they're better equipped than the Indian Army. I mean, we have to agree to that. The kind of infrastructure, the kind of money they're putting in, they are better equipped. A man who's better equipped in the high altitudes may be better suited to fight, or rather his fighting potential increases. So you're offsetting our experience with his capability. Okay, right. So then it's not going to be an easy thing that he's got vulnerabilities which you can exploit so fast. Okay, but there's a fundamental issue which you have brought. Is he over reliant on information? I think so. Okay, you can have as much information you want about space from space. You can have as much information you want. You can have any number of EW attacks, EAO, all that. But you will always get through the way you want. Any force. Okay, and all these have a very finite value. You can't do everything every time. You can't just paralyze the enemy's, command and control systems. All these models he picked up from USA against Iraq and Kosovo. They were no fighters match. Here there's no question of not being matched. Just by EW and informatization, he'll get to know a hell of a lot of information. What can you do with it? And you also will do the same thing to him. So would you? And every round fired is escalation.
Yeah.
Remember, you have to understand, many people fail to read this. In 99, when Kargil happened, we went for a war where there were physical contact between troops. Right? And people said, look, two nuclear nations, there is space for war. But over a period of time, that space kept getting narrowed. When Balakot happened and you sent, you carried out that attack on that terror camp. When Pulwama happened and you attacked at Balakot, and the event of the next day which happened, it actually, if you see, the space for war had decreased by then. In 20 years, the space for war has decreased. So extrapolated to Eastern Ladakh, where everyone went to great lengths not to open a fire, not to open fire also.
That's true.
And you're talking of two nuclear nations. So the space for war and physical war is decreasing. So no one wants to this thing. So the other issues of war, of his system might not come into play. On the other hand, today, if you tomorrow cancel your dependence on China, like we did, he's going to get hurt. So you can, right? And one more thing is that we are not that informatized. Let's be very clear. We are not that informatized. We are not that networked. So he can't break our network. If you're not networked, you can't be broken. Eh? Your networking is different. So with your poor state of networking, whatever or command and control, as per him, you're fighting, and that is not breakable. There's a different ethos.
Fighting ethos, yes.
Okay. And in those high altitudes, our ethos is better. Let me tell you this.
And of course, the example of
You are trained
US
to
versus
fight
Taliban.
isolated. You are trained to fight isolated. Yeah, then of course, you see that classic case Taliban versus.
Yeah.
It was like Ford versus Ferrari, no? Taliban versus USA. So,
all the information possible, still they lost.
Look, fighting is not linear. It is not
Yeah.
on paper. It is not on the number of airplanes you have. Not on the number of satellites you can put in sky. All that has got no value once the balloon goes up in any form across a line.
And it's a different game
See,
altogether.
ultimately in Chushul and Moldo, you could put 10 tanks, 20 tanks, 30 tanks. You can't put 5,000 tanks, no? So there's a limit, and terrain can take only that much of troops. Beyond that, the terrain will say thank you. It becomes counterproductive to put troops beyond a point in terrain. It's something which people don't understand. In a room, 2 people can stay, 3 people can stay, 10 people can stay. The moment the 11th, 12th chap says that it is detrimental to the guys in that room.
Correct.
Where will they go for a toilet? Where will they'll be stinking? Where will they bathe? Where will they clothe? Where will they hang their clothes? All these things come. How will housekeeping be done? What is the hygiene, sanitation involved? So if you put so many people in the same area, they're going to have problems. So that is how it is. We'll leave it at that.
That's an, I think, very easy example to make someone
way to understand.
Correct, sir. So my question, my final question would be one: the response that India should be planning. You hinted on it in terms of what we should, how the thought processes should change in terms of how to tackle this kind of a warfare. One, and second, you also written about India's grey zone capability some time ago. So if you can combine both these and give us some sort of a roadmap that you would have in your mind.
You see, China has been carrying out grey zone activities from a long time.
Yeah.
Okay. Way back in 2002, after we signed the MOU by which we recognize Tibet as part of China and they recognize Sikkim as part of India. And before that itself, we had given statehood to Arunachal. Virtually, they had said Arunachal is part of India as per that MOU. But now they've reneged on it and they've slowly started calling it South Tibet.
Yeah.
Then they went and did something in Doklam. Then they are trying something in Nepal. They're pressurizing Bhutan, and then they're now building those border villages, right? And then all these grey zone activities are going on, right? And then they come out with their three warfare strategy, which actually supports the grey zone thing. And I had said that if you see the activities of China from 2002 to now and compare it to the activities of China and South China Sea, they are the same grey zone. They have now put a border law which was not there. They've done the same thing in South China Sea, right? So they're doing the same thing. It's like a playbook. Now you have to get into that playbook. Start doing it. Start doing it in some manner. It's not as if we have not done it. We also sent our MPs and ministers, some guy, our MPs went for that Tibetan thing.
Yeah. That Tibetan dinner that created
a dinner which created, yeah. So that message is more than enough for China. Bewkoof nahi. Recently,
Kiran Riju also visited Arunachal.
Yeah. He's from there only, so he'll go.
No, but union minister, so that created a bit of
all this will do. Why should we not?
Yeah,
we're not bothered about them. We're not bothered about them. The union flag goes there in, Arunachal, everywhere, wherever you go, there are people from Arunachal who are serving in the Indian Armed Forces.
Oh, loads of them, sir.
Yeah, lots of them. So that is gone. But the fact is that you start doing certain gray zone activities now clearly. What do you have to do? I don't have to tell. There are enough people who can, who are supposed to do this, right? And well, the gray zone is not. You can do it indirectly in Myanmar also. We are not doing it. Why we are not doing it is a different story. Right? That's something which the government has to answer. Look, at some point of time, India has to take a call if it wants to be a power or a soft power. Pakistan is doing it with you.
Yeah.
So you want to be defensive always? Well, or you want to say, okay, you do something, I'll do something, and then after that we'll come to a. I mean, the Kailash range operation should have taught India a lot of lessons. Okay, the fact that you occupied Kailash and you put him on the back foot, the fact that you employed Tibetan SFF, it's given a lot of messages to them. So
Even
why
now,
didn't we? Yeah,
even now there are vulnerabilities on their end in
yeah,
PP-15.
there are
stuff like that.
hell of a lot there. Right? You can do a lot. I mean, we can do a hell of a lot.
So there's some reporting that came out that there is some pressure that India is also.
See, we don't have to do always everything on the LAC.
Yeah.
You can do a hell of a lot otherwise. Right? It's up to us how to do it. But do we have the political will to do it? Do we have the military acumen to do it? Do you have the, I won't say bureaucratic, do you have the strategic acumen? Does our bureaucracy have the strategic acumen to do it? Who's thinking of all this? Is the defense secretary thinking of this or not? Is he in the loop for this? Is the national security advisor doing this or not? Is the home secretary? In my way, the home secretary, defense secretary, and the NSA should sit together and make a strategy out, along with the CDS. The fact that we have not even appointed a CDS tells us, we did mahina ho gaya. 1.5 months gone and we have not appointed a CDS. Okay. For whatever reason, I'll not say. But the fact is, it tells you a drift. But we don't let go our elections. So a political class also has to have that strategic outlook.
Absolutely.
And I'm not talking about the Prime Minister alone. He has. That's why when he went to Leh 2 years back and he spoke what he spoke and it had an effect. But what about others?
It's a whole structure that has
it's a structure.
Yeah.
Okay.
One man can't do anything.
Yeah. Has Xi Jinping spoken against India? He has not spoken against India. But every other joker, Tom, Dick and Harry there speaks, right from Global Times editor to some consular officer in Delhi. They're working as a well-oiled machine. That is what I find missing in our system.
Responsiveness. I think we are more towards.
We need to. Yeah, we need to. And that comes out of study. You have to study China more. Or look, I'm not being critical about our think tanks, but tell me how many think tanks come out with studies on China, their operational art, how they're doing, how they're organized, and all that, right? Whereas
you think of China as this big dragon, which
you see, USA is engaged with China, and they now know China. They engage. Where has our engagement led us to? Have we come out with thought papers? Have we come out with our own strategy as to how we want to handle it? Do we have debate on this? So we have our own issues. I'm not saying that people are just not doing anything, but are we doing enough?
There's a lot. There's no question. from
Yeah, are we doing
sleepy
enough?
India, we've woken up a little bit, but I guess the pace has
No,
to pick
but
up.
yeah, look, at the same time, let me also talk the other way around. The fact that we put a strike core there
Yeah.
gives its own message.
Central Asian republics, we've had a meeting.
We've had a
Uh,
meeting.
Sri
I
Lanka
mean, there
is
are a lot
trying to
of things we have
counterbalance
done.
all these.
Yeah, there are a lot of things we have done. Of course, but I think if India wants to be a regional power, I mean, look, our budget came out today. We've grown at 9.25%. You are projected to grow 8 to 9%. And if you grow at 8 to 9% over the next 3 years, look, already your economy is at 3 trillion. If you grow at 8 to 9% for the next 3 years, just next 3 years, that's 24% jump. That means your economy will be touching and compounded, mind you.
Yes, yes.
8% compounded. It will be about 30% more. 30% more means you added another trillion. You're at 4 trillion in the next 3 years. If you grow at 8%. And if you grow at 8%, and if your economy is 4 trillion, and if your defense expenditure is still only 1.5% of the GDP, you've still grown 30%. Are we looking at it in the long term to build capabilities, to build a strategy? And you have to if you are a 4 trillion economy. Have you started equalizing with your neighbors? That's why we do neighbors watch,
Yeah.
neighborhood watch.
Mm.
So it's internal. PLA can be handled. I'm very confident.
No, actually, the whole thing, and this is something that we've brought out before. Strategic thought is something which is missing in our outlook as Indians. We're very inward looking, and we don't want to kind of
Yeah, I
uh,
agree with you. I
look
agree with you completely.
outside and get something for our advantage. Oh, the good boy image, I think, has gone far enough, not getting us
There
anywhere.
are reasons which I will not go into it now, right? But that's a different subject. Since we're talking of PLA, and in
No, of
fact,
course.
I think we have veered away a bit, but it's a good discussion.
No, absolutely, sir. Because if you're talking about the PLA, there has to be a talk of the counter to the PLA. I mean, at the end of it, that
I
is what
agree with
the game
you.
is.
Yep.
Sir, thanks so much. I think this has been a very interesting discussion. A lot of pending thoughts in my head have kind of been laid to rest, and of course, there will be some other pops that will come out. We'll probably discuss it in the next series of watching PLA and watching China. That's going to come up in the next some time. I'd like to remind all the people that are watching this that we would be going live for our talk on watching China shortly. In about next week or something, we'll come up with a plan and share it with all of you. It'll be nice to have a lot of people and an interactive discussion with people who are actually interested in watching China. Sir, thank you so much for joining in and for the thought process, preparation, and the talk, of course. Till next time for another subject, sir. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Thank you.